found them. I found them. For a moment, I felt like a bounty hunter who had just won the reward for having caught the most wanted criminal. Have you guys ever raised a child? I mean, raising a baby right from infanthood all the way to when they become a toddler? You know, at some point, you need to wean the babies from breast milk to actual solid food. Well, this is what I have to do on a daily with my plants. So I had become an expert at weaning cassava plants. So weaning is the process in which we transfer our cassava plants from the lab to the greenhouse. So we essentially call it weaning because in the lab, the plants are so spoiled. We have them in conditions where they have all the nutrients they need. They are essentially babied. But in the glass house, the conditions simulate environmental conditions, very harsh, sometimes even exposed to drought, so that we can actually just check how steady our plants are. So having been an expert in this process, I would do this with so much ease. But now one time, I woke up, got to the lab, and found that the plants that I had weaned were all dead. You know what this meant? This meant I had done something wrong. You know, they had actually wilted. They didn't die like they had been diseased. So I questioned myself, did I not water the plants? Had I been careless? But I mean, I talked to my supervisor and he just told me, try and figure out what happened. But momentarily, wean another set of plants. So in the lab, we keep a backup of plants so that in case anything happens to the ones we are weaning, we still have a backup of plants. So I felt a bit dejected for some time because I didn't know what was going wrong. So after weaning a new set of plants, I decided I am going to monitor these plants. I am going to make sure that they survive. Because at this point, it was not a walk in the park like it had been. Do you know how new moms creep up on babies when they're sleeping to just try and check on them to be sure that the child is still sleeping? That was me with my plants. I would check on them every 3 hours. For a week and a half, I'd be checking on these plants just to make sure that I'd catch them at that point where they'd start wilting, if at all. So this happened for some time. But 10 days later, I came and 2 of my plants were drooping. They were wilting. I mean, I could not imagine it. I tried to figure out, did I not water them? Because the others still looked healthy. But the soil was still moist. They had the same conditions as all the other plants. I can't even describe my disappointment at that time. I felt quite inadequate because, I mean, I could not understand what's happening. This is something I have done over the years. 2 days later, 5 plants died. It became like a pandemic of sorts. A plant after another dying. Suddenly, all my plants were dead. So what did I do? I decided, because I cannot figure out what is killing my plants, I have watered them. If it's about fertilizer, they have enough. So I said, since they're dead anyway, let's do the only analysis we can, a post-mortem. So what did I do? Grabbed my blades, grabbed the dead plants, off to the lab to do dissections. Armed with my microscope, I cut up the plants just to get to see what's happening, what's causing their death. And right under that microscope was my answer. There and then, I saw them. These little tiny assassins, the tiny worms that were actually eating up my plants. They were boring through the stem of these plants and eating them up and killing them. I could not see them. They were microscopic. So I did a bit of research further on and actually got to see and to know that these worms were larvae of a fly that actually fed on the manure that I put on the soil for my cassava plants to grow. I had found a solution. At that point, mi nilijua nimeweza. I left the lab. I went and told my supervisor, you know what? I know why our plants are dying and I have a way forward. I told my supervisor, but he was quite skeptical. He thought it was too far-fetched. So I went and told my supervisor, you know what? I'll try grow my plants without manure and see if this can happen, if they will survive. So I went, collected a new batch of soil, freshly sterilized, added no manure, and I went new plants into this soil. And to just prevent these little flies from accessing my plants, I put them in a small cage. And just like our tiny little babies under that mosquito net, I put my cassava babies in there. And after 2 weeks, which is the period in which we wean our plants, my plants were steady, 100% survival. At that point, I knew that I had redeemed myself and that I had reclaimed my former glory.